Hello, everyone. So let me just start by saying, hearing that road story just a second ago reminds me of the first time I visited India. And this is only my second time here, so thank you, Cockroach, for having me. Excited to be here. And it was a great experience the first time. But I flew into Delhi. I got in a cab to take me to my hotel. You guys already probably know what I'm going to say. I was scared. I've never been scared in a car before. You guys are professional drivers, is what I know now. Okay, you turn a 3-lane road into a 5 lanes. In the US, they'd call that driving while impaired. You'd be pulled over and arrested. So this time flew in last night. I got in the cab. I was not nervous at all. I know you guys are professional drivers, but that's reminding me of that story. And you mentioned about the roads and the infrastructure here to support that growth that's coming to India. So again, I'm Jess Tays, global payments data management leader. We are a large fintech company, Fortune 500. Payments industry, we have 2 distinct lines of business. One's called merchant acquiring, one's called issuing. Okay, issuing is the credit card you probably have in your wallet, right? We actually create the card for large banks, okay? Merchant, where I'm on the merchant side, we call that merchant acquiring. It's where you actually swipe your card, tap it, pay by your phone. That's where my focus is, okay? If you're in the payments industry, you know what's going on right now. There's a very large transaction my company's involved in, and that is that we are selling issuing to FIS for $13.5 billion, and we are buying WorldPay for $24 billion. This is all going to close in Q1 of 26. It's an exciting time to be at Global Payments. I really can't say more about that, but I wanted to address that because, they're still a competitor for now until the deal closes. But WorldPay is number 2 largest processor in the world. We're number 4. Okay. Fiserv's number 1. Okay. Together, we will be number 1. So it's an exciting time to be in fintech and in technology in general. So a little bit more about our company. These are some of the big brands that we process. And something I realized that was left off this, you see Mercedes-Benz Stadium at the bottom there. Football, which means something different to you guys. You think soccer. Football to me is like NFL. But we process a lot of the soccer stadiums, cricket, NFL stadiums around the world. So our omni-channel experience is what we call it. From the time you swipe or tap your card, the customer getting, data around the transaction, the value-added services. That's really how we make our money, okay? You can see, we have we're in 100 plus industries, 5 million merchant accounts in my area. We are in 170 countries. That's going to grow with WorldPay. WorldPay has a lot of the big box stores. We focus a lot on, even though some of these are large customers, SMBs, small, medium businesses. So that's a little bit about Global Payments. Let's jump into the fun stuff. I like how Spencer said he went over a little bit. I'm going to try and be on time. It's going to be hard because there's just so much to unpack here. I could spend the whole time talking about this slide, data and database strategy, and why we are leveraging Cockroach for our transaction processing environments and also our lower level environments that don't require that uptime even. So we'll start unpacking this a little bit. Your data and database strategy have to align, right? Your data strategy is high level. Your database strategy is how you're going to get it done, right? An example of that is like we have in our data strategies, self-serve analytics across clouds for our customers. Well, how do we do that? Well, we're doing that by using Snowflake, and we're doing data sharing across 2 cloud providers, right? So that's an example of what I'm talking about here. But from the database strategy perspective, we worked with a business continuity team. We've created tiers of applications, tiers 0 through 4. Tier 0 is 5 nines of uptime. RTO 0, RPO 0, there is really no downtime. Even though we have maintenance windows, I kind of chuckle because there really isn't a maintenance window anymore. The maintenance windows that we have defined are really at a lower volume time for us to try and get stuff done, right? By trying to be 5 nines, there's not a lot of technology from the database perspective that can help us get there. That's why we're using CockroachDB, which I'll get into in a minute here. But tier 1 goes down to 99.95, right? And then tier 2, 3, and 4, it drops down. And right now, the last count, we have 47 different database flavors in global payments. That's because we are a company of many companies and have done acquisitions over the years. We're in a big, we call it GP25, consolidation effort right now. The database strategy, which I updated in October 24, is getting us down to 8. Out of those 47 right now, we have over 250 versions of databases, okay? Like SQL Server 2012, 16, we don't have 2012 anymore, by the way. 16, 17, 19, 22, those are all the versions. That's what I mean. But the database flavor in the 47, SQL Server count as 1, right? As an example. So trying to get down to 8, there's only 3 approved for tier 0. Cockroach is one of them, okay? All these things listed here, I'm not going to go over them all because it'll take too long, are what we look for in the database with definition behind each of these for why does it need to be highly scalable? How is it going to be highly scalable? How does it meet the business needs, right? So fault tolerant, here's a big one, and that is, automatic data replication. My team, we are running Golden Gate. We are running Stream. We're running Ab Initio. We're doing a whole bunch of different replication technologies. We're using Microsoft SQL replication. Matter of fact, my team was on a call most of the weekend fixing that because it broke after a failover, right? We had to do a new snapshot, spent literally almost 60 hours restoring service for an on-premise data warehouse. Going back to your outage comment, Spencer, we don't have outages, right? 86 kind of scary. But I put in the middle here AI. And this will be the only slide I bring this up on, I promise, right? Everybody has AI fatigue at this point. I really think we all do, but it's not going away. In the beginning, I thought it was going to be like blockchain. Oh, hey, we'll see where it goes. Blockchain still hasn't gone mainstream, but AI really is. It's not going away. It's here. It's part of our daily lives. And the best technology, I'll say, is the technology that we don't even know that we adopted and are using. Right? Think about when you used to swipe your credit card. Then it's like, oh, cool, I can tap it. Now it's like, okay, I can just pay with my phone or my Apple iWatch. And oh, by the way, I don't even need a credit card, virtual card, right? It's like we keep evolving. And this technology, you don't really notice it until you start thinking about it. That's the best technology in my opinion. But back to AI real quick. Agentic AI agents, using RAG, training your model, all these things require a database. Data is the key to all of AI. If you don't have good data, you're going to fail, like the 95% statistic. That's true, right? At Global Payments, we're doing a lot of AI projects. We've been using AI for a long time in our service center, so it's nothing new to us, but it's changing, right? And you want to make sure that you have a database that's prepared for the future. Not all of them are ready, right? And that's where Cockroach comes in. And that you want to make sure that you can operationalize your AI, and Cockroach is at the heart of that. And the last comment I'll make on AI is that, because I promised this is the last slide, I'll talk about AI. The thing that Spencer showed earlier, with all those bots and people out there, think about this. In the future, from a payment perspective, you're going to give a set of parameters and say, I want this product, I want it to be within this price, shipped to my house at this date, shipped to your residence, wherever you live, at this date, and you're going to go to bed. It's going to be bots out there doing the shopping, having access to data, to pay for this product that you're ordering. And that's just the world we're going to live in. And I'm kind of fast forwarding into, I think the future is going to be like. But guess what? You have to have fraud detection. It's no longer fraud detection on the back end before you send the money out the door. It's fraud detection on the front end. You've got to catch it immediately and at the time of the transaction. That's where all this comes together. Okay, so talk a little bit about some challenges here. We have multiple systems that we're demising, part of that consolidation effort. I will say we are running SQL Server for this specific product that we modernized, okay? And what we're doing is we're demising the SQL servers and we're moving the processing to Cockroach, okay? How did I scale in the past? Well, I had to set up a new 4-node AG, completely independent of the one that existed. I route these other new clients over here. That is so inefficient, and it's operationally a nightmare because now I have the same number of staff supporting 3 or 4 times the systems that they originally hired to do. It's not a good place to be. That's where I'm going to talk about Cockroach and how it's helped us to be able to take those big monolithic old systems that had the inability to scale down into a single platform. So we all know we're global operations, 24/7 availability. With that payment gateway that's showing up there, that's really what I'm talking about right here, right? It's the first experience the merchant has with us is that gateway, okay? And then that gateway connects to what we call a front end. That front end connects out to the card brands for the authorization. Then there's a back end piece, which is what they call they batch the information up, and then the payments go out to the merchants, the ACH files. That part's not shown on here, so make sure you know that there's almost too many touch points in an authorization and getting that money to the client, and that's what we're trying to simplify. Oop, wrong way. All right, I talked a little bit about SQL Server and the scalability and the trouble we were having there. It also goes into the downtime and the maintenance window I mentioned earlier. When I need to do maintenance in SQL Server, I have to do a failover of the AG, availability group, if you guys don't know what that is. It's an always-on cluster where you have one writable node. Usually in that data center, you have synchronous to a secondary node. You can do read-only on that secondary node. Then you'll have asynchronous across the data centers and data center can be cloud, on-premise, whatever, to DR, right? The problem with that is when I do patching, which I have to do for compliance reasons, which I forgot to mention earlier, compliance is a big part of what we do, PCI, DSS, SOX, all that kind of stuff we have to comply with. I have to actually fail over. When I fail over, after the Windows patch and reboot, there is an outage. There is downtime when I move traffic, and there has to be retry logic in the application. Sometimes it takes 30 seconds. Sometimes it takes 2 minutes to do a failover, depending on what your redo queue is, and which we've learned to watch, by the way. But I don't want to deal with that, right? And so that's where we are using Cockroach to help us solve that problem. And we're doing this cloud native, right? We've upskilled our team members to move from, old way of thinking, I'll call it, to a new way of thinking in terms of platform teams, SRE, DevOps. I like to say DBRE because, database guy. But I don't care what you call it. You're going to require people to have a new skill set to modernize your application. They're going to have to wear more hats. The days of being, I'm a DBA, I don't do that, are over. Now, here's the key. You still need to be an expert in something. Be an expert with CockroachDB, for instance. But you're going to have to know Terraform. You have to know Kubernetes, containerization. You need to expand your skill set. Network, right? And so what we've done is we've created a team that is of multiple high-level disciplines like network and DBAs, software engineers, and we're putting them together in this ecosystem so we can move forward and be agile at the end of the day. So you have to think differently when you do this. Talked about containerization. We want to be cloud neutral. The tier 0 calls out that we have to be active with tier 0. And I like to use the term multi-active, which Spencer said earlier too. And in that, we really, really, really focus on using the right product at the right time. And that's where a Cockroach, I'll get into in a second, meets those needs. So here's what we're doing. Multi-region deployments, container-aware load balancing. CockroachDB is at the core. I think next slide I'll talk a little bit more about this, but we have a global load balancer. That's an Anycast DNS IP address, which it knows, for instance, you come in, I'll use the US for example. You come in from the West Coast, it knows your West Coast IP address. You route to the Cockroach nodes on the West Coast. Those are down, you go to Central, and so forth. That's how conceptually it works, okay? Now, this is something that happened to us. I actually blacked out the name because all cloud providers have outages, right? This one was specific to IAM, and it happened over the summer. We are running Cockroach, SQL Server, a whole bunch of applications in this cloud provider. What we found out was, hey, if we can't authorize, and we can't connect, our applications are up and they're resilient, but we just had an IAM issue. We're down. So here's the funny part. Well, it really wasn't funny. It is kind of now. We all use Teams. We use, Meet and all these, workplace innovative tools to make us effective. Guess what? They do a code red. That means everybody on the phone, something's bad's going on, to the technical teams. We could have joined the call. It didn't work. We could not connect. And then they're like sending out literally text messages to us. And they're like, hey, we need to do an old-fashioned voice call. We're down, right? And it's like, oh, well, how do I call these people? Well, oh, yeah, the calling tree is out on the drive I can't access in the cloud. So you have to think about these things. And that's why with Cockroach, you can take it where you want it to go. And what I mean by that, and I'll talk about this in a minute, is that literally the world is your oyster. And it sounds kind of weird, but how you want to design this and how far you want to take it to be resilient is up to you. It really is. You can design it to be fast reads, fast writes, one region, multi-zone, or you can take a little bit of a latency hit and design it to where I want to have fast failover to another region, another cloud provider, right? So there's all these options for you that you can choose. And that's what the beautiful thing is about the product. And this is what we're doing. We're doing a replication factor of 5, okay? What that means is I need to have a quorum of 3. I need to hear back from 3 before everything's hardened and, compliant, not compliant, but committed. And so you can see here in this example, you have US East 4, Central 1, and West, 5 nodes in each, okay? We are right now hitting about 250 transactions per second within those SQL Server deployments. And we think about 250 on this, 250 on this, 250 on that. Right now, with 5 nodes, and we're running what they call C3 8 machines in Google, that's an 8-core box that is 32 gig of RAM. My SQL machine in GCP, the 4-node, I'm 128 cores, 3 terabytes of RAM to get 250 TPS. I'm getting 1,000 TPS in Cockroach. And I've lowered my total cost of ownership. Because those 128 cores in GCP, I have to pay Microsoft. And not only do I have to pay Microsoft 128, I got to pay 256 because I got to pay for the read-only node. I am literally at 120 cores of Cockroach right now, getting 1,000 TPS. And we've done tests above that. And I can scale, which I couldn't before. So think about that. Let that sink in a little bit. I really should put cost to that, right? And it's huge because SQL Server is not cheap. So you kind of talked about this a little bit. Users in California route to the West Coast, and New York goes to East Coast. So that global load balance we're doing. But we're also we process across the world. We're planning for data sovereignty. There's things like DORA, GDPR, things that are, affecting, where the data can live and, how to protect the data and so forth. Like for instance, in the EU, we're going to stand up a Cockroach cluster, in the EU, and we're going to make sure that the data only lives there and isn't replicated back to the US, right? So that's in the plans of how we're going to scale this thing. And it's tied into the one ecosystem of Cockroach, right? And so that's really, really powerful and hard to do with other products. And I mentioned earlier being cloud neutral. There are other products out there that do similar type of work, like DynamoDB, Spanner, and Cosmos. But there's one problem. And that is that I know DynamoDB is a little different animal. I can actually have a local DynamoDB and some things there, but it's mainly for development. They're cloud lock-ins. I need flexibility. With my company, all these acquisitions and all these moves, we don't know what cloud we're going to be in. I need flexibility. I need to be able to take my Kubernetes cluster and move it to AWS, GCP, Azure, on-premise, right? I need that flexibility, right? I can't be on those products because they are not flexible, okay? Unless you have a CIO and CTO that are like, we are always going to be in this one cloud provider. But again, I showed you, each cloud provider can have an outage and it will affect you. You have to plan for that. That's what I mean about how far you want to take this, right? So we did chaos testing. And here's some benchmarks that we got before we did that chaos testing. That is that I really should put numbers on the bars here, but for latency, each of those bars is about 250 milliseconds. In our current SQL Server system, you can see it is a little bit faster than the modernized Cockroach. Barely. You see that on the left there, that bar. Those are, again, 250 milliseconds. We want to be under a second for our transaction. We're giving up a little bit of time there because of the way we set the distributed nature of Cockroach up. And remember, I'm getting a more fault-tolerant database with uptime. On the right there, again, I should put numbers by this, TPS. You can see there on the left side, each of those lines is 250, where I'm getting 250 TPS from the SQL Server system. And on the right there, I'm getting right at 1,000. Okay, again, that's on those C3 small machines. Going into the chaos testing, using Gremlin, Chaos Monkey, whatever you want, write your own in-house scripts. We literally yanked nodes out, the leaseholder, right? We caused network issues. We are running an upgrade of Cockroach. We're running what's called TTNL. It's our delete process. We are doing a schema upgrade and a backup all at the same time we did this. Hardly noticed any increase in latency. It was small. It was nominal. It was incredible to see. And our leadership, we showed them the results. Wow, they were happy, right? Because this is a game changer. It really is. So, lessons learned. It's not easy. Learning Kubernetes containerization, taking people who are at this one way of thinking and doing their job for 10, 15 years, this one way, to get them to change is sometimes difficult. The adoption has to happen from within. It helps if you can bring somebody from the outside, the trainer team who's done it before. That's a good way to jumpstart it. And give your teams access to training, right? And let them learn. Give them rewards for completing classes is what we've been doing. We have a reward system where we can give people rewards. Hey, you get certified in this, we'll give you that kind of thing. So motivate people if they're not motivated. Because believe me, I have people on my team who would love to just be legacy on-premise DBA people forever. To motivate them is sometimes hard. It really is. But then you do have people who really want it. So embrace that is what I'm saying. We have to understand, what I'm getting to is understand the distributed mindset. It's a different way of thinking, the way you design and implement this, right? And, you have to think about tools you have, like ORM tools, object relational mapping. Will that work with Cockroach? What's your current process? And then aligning with those tools your database, because you don't want to have to go change a whole bunch of tools, what you're doing, Jira, Harness.io, whatever you're doing there, right? Networking and latency are critical. Again, not to get too much into the weeds, but we decided to do what's called a 2-2-1. Remember, I need 3 responses for quorum. 2 are going to be local almost all the time. I have to reach across for 1, and then it's whole. We're doing that because we want to be able to fail over faster. You can design that to co-locate your data to get an incredible fast response locally too, and still have zonal differences, right? Again, it's how you want to design it. There's a 3-1-1. You remember, we're replication factor of 5, so I'm saying that. I won't get too deep into this, but you can do a 3-1-1 where that means you'll get everything local, right? But we're doing 2-2-1. So next thing, application awareness matters. You've got to sometimes change your application. When we started this journey, we did not have stored procedures in Cockroach. We didn't have UDFs. We moved it all back to code, inline SQL and so forth, right? And what we did is, because Cockroach kind of forced us to do that at the time, because we loved the product, now they support stored procedures, UDFs, and it makes the transition. I know why they did it. And there's a whole argument of pros and cons of doing each, right? But I know why they did it. It's for faster adoption of Cockroach, because not everybody has 2 years to rewrite an application like we did. It literally took that long. You're talking over, 15 million lines of code, which is a whole another story. I'll do a low code presentation later. But anyway, moving on to the schema query design best practices. Index strategies do differ. Secondary indexes, that concept, right? follower reads. There's a whole bunch of different things to Cockroach. It works great out of the box, but if you really want to get into the weeds and the details, there's so many different things that you can do to make it really an exciting product that meets your needs. Operational tooling and monitoring. Okay, we went with Datadog in the beginning. Love Datadog. It's a great product. We use it for the other databases that we support. The problem became containerization. It became very expensive when you license it for containers because we have a lot of containers, right? Because we're using Kubernetes, GKE specifically. What happened is that I can have a 60 core box and I put APM on there, DBM, NPM, their performance monitoring. I'm paying for one agent. But if I split that 60 core box and containerize it, I pay for each container. And boy, did that add up really quick with Datadog. So, not to knock on Datadog. Again, love their product. It's a good product. I wish we could afford it for this particular use case. But what we did is, we're in Google. We're using the Google console. And we're using Prometheus and Grafana now. Which, guess what? The cost is literally 3% of what Datadog is going to be. All I have to do is basically pay for the storage. Now, Cockroach does have a good console you can use, but it doesn't do the alerting. I need to know if something goes bump in the night, my on-call is going to get paged and respond immediately, right? That's right, Prometheus and Grafana there. So I'm getting the times up here. So luckily, I'm at the very end here. I was close to on time. So I'll be here tonight. Love to talk to anybody, explain our experience, talk about it, why we designed it the way we did. Bottom line is we're very happy with the partnership with Cockroach. It's been going on for many years. It's going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to use more Cockroach. I like the fact of working with them that they listen. We have a bunch of other databases, as you guys heard, but giving input to the product and then prioritizing it is the difference for me as well. Spencer or Peter having their ear, I'll call him up. He'll respond. I call Larry over at Oracle. I doubt he's going to take my call. All right. What's next? Continuing building on the success. I just kind of went over that. And, we're going to continue, expanding and extending this out in our environment and grow. And the ability to scale is just incredibly important for us. So thank you. Appreciate it, everyone.